been here last year, we have grown. It's now a giant stage with more stuff. Okay, so there's a couple of things before we can start. I kind of want to introduce you to all the people involved in this panel. Let's start with that. So my name is Jenny, I'm a game designer of 6 years. I wanted to make an entertainment panel that also is a little educational last year, and started out with a tiny little stage where we did sock puppets and game development and so on. It was great, and we did a little story where we overall explained how a game development cycle works. And it was so fun and so awesome that we decided to do it again with, we're continuing the story, but we will fill you in on what happened last year if you weren't there. So that's me. Then we have to start with the person who is the most responsible for everything you see, which is the stage, the puppets, just everything, which is Anthea. You have to really put your hands together. So, yes. Then I will introduce you to our narrators and writers, which is first of all Emily Personnel. And then there's David Quinney. So as for puppeteers, we have two puppeteers that are fixed, which is me, and Jimmy Riley. And we have an international guest who's a guest puppeteer every single time, and this year we have Jen McLean from the IGDA. Yes, this is so cool. Okay, we need to do a little bit of a run first, because you are going to have to do things too. Yay! Okay, excellent. Essentially, we will need you to react to our wonderful science here, and I'm going to do a test with you, so you understand what's going to happen. Let's try this first one. Dun, dun, dun. Perfect. Very good. We have a bit of a weird one, so I want to do that too, just so you understand how it works. It's a fast-forward sound. It's like... Excellent. You get it. You get it. Cool, so we're going to sit up, and it's going to take maybe a minute, and then we're going to start. Okay.
Are you all excited?
Yeah.
You are terrifyingly close to me right now. That wasn't what I was afraid of, but now I am.
Just consider all our enthusiasm in one helpful, cute little bundle.
Yeah. Oh,
that's a very nice way to put it.
You are everyone's enthusiasm. Okay, look, I'm listening to the whispers happening behind.
Yeah, just let us know when you guys are ready.
Everybody just talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
Imagine what
Who
it's
here
like.
has had a good pack so far?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Are you ready?
Then let the curtains be open.
Ooh. Previously on Game Design Explained with Sock Puppets. In the wake of Tiny Angry Flappy Bird. We don't talk about that. The team found inspiration.
2 dust bunnies surviving the vacuum cleaner through the power of friendship. Make some noise for Tales of the Dust Bunnies!
They developed a prototype.
Is it fun yet?
Sound effects or fart noises.
And they got funding. Today, we take a closer look at the game designer's work. Today, we glance inside Amy's head.
Inside Amy's head?
Oh, that is just gross.
You skinned her alive! What's wrong with you?
It was a metaphor. It was just a metaphor. all fun and games. Hey, Emily.
Yeah?
Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to be here again, it's very nice. But didn't we cover all the game development process last year? I mean, couldn't we just put like a YouTube video up and then we'll put it on the screen and then we could just go for a beer?
Well...
I mean, I remember the whole door problem, you know, do you have doors in your games? Can the player open all of them? How do they tell the difference? But if you've played a lot of games, you'd know how to make a good design, no?
A lot of gamer and even some people in the industry seem to think that. How many people in this crowd have lived in apartments or houses for most of your life? Yeah? Yeah? Cool. So you all have many years of experience interacting with a house for several hours every day. That's more time than you've played games, right?
No.
Let's go with yes, shall we?
Woo! You're an architect, you're an architect, you're an architect, you're all architects!
Okay, point taken. So, we do need to dive into Amy's head.
Yep.
Maybe.
I'm not sure I want to do this, but I'm gonna try.
Yay! Ooh, right. Okay, right. So after a great brainstorm with the team, Amy sits back at her desk in a corner of the top drawer studio.
The studio has a room in a co-working space full of indie devs. Something like the arcade, only with no resemblance to the arcade whatsoever.
Legally. That's, yeah. Amy grabs her fidget cube next to her fidget spinner and her stress relief ball and other nervous energy catalyst. She starts thinking about all the possibilities.
We have a thought bubble.
That's thoughts. Props. We've really hit the big leagues this year. I should have worn a full suit.
It's a sock puppet show at a game dev event. We're a few years away from being a black tie soiree.
Okay, fair enough. I'll just stick with the jacket and the t-shirt, you know, the uniform.
It's very busy in Amy's head. Dust bunnies are floating around, cat memes, grocery lists, bits and pieces from other concepts that were discussed.
Cherry bombs! How many people were here last year? That was a song. We did a thing, okay?
Great song.
Thank you!
Sam, the producer, tries to get Amy's attention.
Amy?
But
Amy!
But Amy's lost in her head.
Amy! Amy! Amy!
Sorry. I thought you were an alien.
You've been watching way too many movies.
Maybe. What were you saying?
When do you think you'll have a summary of the game and a features list documented for us,
I should have both by the end of this sprint. It won't be super detailed, but it should be enough to start planning the next few weeks.
Great!
Sam walks away, and Amy tries to recover her train of thoughts.
The game is obviously going to require Dust Bunnies, so that's a good place to start.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so nothing's happening. Should we maybe try turning it off and on again?
We're not that high-tech yet.
Oh, sorry.
It's not easy to create things on command. Let's try giving her 15 minutes to get back in the zone.
Okay, then tiny fast forward then. Okay, Amy taps and rolls and clicks her fidget cube. Ideas appear again. And Amy says to herself,
In the meeting, we talked about the vacuum cleaner. So we put that on the left side of the screen and have the dust bunnies run towards the right.
Amy plays the game in her head a little. It's missing a lot of elements.
Dust bunnies, vacuum cleaner. The environment should probably be furniture from around the house, Dust Bunnies could hide between chair legs.
Things are actually starting to take shape when one of the Davids appear. Amy gets interrupted a lot.
That's pretty much a game designer's life when the game's in production.
Why?
Well, game design is like the axle of a wheel. It can't go anywhere on its own, and the wheel isn't super efficient without an axle. And if the axle and the wheel disconnect while you drive...
Right, okay, so constant communication is the key.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's go back to the puppet with the best of names, the Davids.
He is one. He is Legion. He is a coder. He says...
Hey, Amy, did you want multiplayer?
And Amy says, sorry, what?
Well, you know, if the game's about two Dust Bunnies, like, working together, did you want multiplayer?
Well, local multiplayer on the phone wouldn't work.
Well, yeah, well, what about online? We could have players communicate like they did in Journey, yeah.
I have to think about it. I'm not sure it works with the player's behavior on mobile.
Yeah, no wuckers, mate.
The Davids leave, and Amy tries once again to find her trail of thought.
While she does that, sorry, could you just translate some game dev speak? So what does she mean by players' behaviour on mobile?
When do you play mobile games?
On the train or on the toilet?
Okay, let's go with the train.
Oh, fine.
So you need to be able to close the game at any time to get off at your stop or give your seat to someone who needs it more.
Yeah, okay, that's actually the same for the toilet too. Yeah.
Okay. Imagine you're playing a live co-op game and then you suddenly have to stop. That would really suck for the other player. They would lose their partner right in the middle of a level. And most people play mobile games without the sounds. So multiplayer communications that relies on audio cues, playing wouldn't work.
Okay, so you need to think about all of this when you're figuring out how the game works.
Yep, it's all part of the player experience.
Holy guacamole. Okay, so based on what you said, it sounds like multiplayer can't actually work. So why is Amy still thinking about it?
Well, it's an interesting idea that could really make Tales of the Dust Bunnies stand out. Maybe there's a way to make it work, maybe not. She doesn't want to dismiss it too quickly.
Yeah, well, I suppose there'd never be anything new in games if developers didn't take risks.
Exactly. I think Amy's back in the zone.
Nice. Right. In her mind, she's figuring out how to use pieces of furniture as the environment for the game, and she says,
Dust Bunnies are usually on the floor, but that wouldn't be an exciting platformer. Maybe they could also climb on top of pieces of furniture and jump between them.
Amy notes down her ideas and starts creating a list of features that the game will need.
Something is stewing in the back of her head.
Something dark and full of terrors.
It is Evil Amy. And she says, remaking Jetpack Joyride with an extra playable character for no good reason. That's so 2011.
It's Amy's evil clone, the voice of self-doubt. Also a final boss game cliche, but you know, we'll scold the writer later. Evil Amy says,
What does tripping a friend to slow down pursuers count as collaboration in your book? Because I don't see any other use for a friend when we're being chased by a vacuum cleaner.
Amy takes another look at her notes, and her evil clone isn't wrong. Amy says,
If the game was turn-based, that would work for co-op multiplayer. I could add puzzle elements that require collaboration.
and evil Amy says,
A vacuum cleaner that waits its turn to pursue me. That's gonna rock my sock off.
Amy feels Both versions of the game have pros and cons. So which one is best?
Evil Amy says, "You promised you would figure this out in 2 weeks. You can't choose, can you? Can you? Can you? Can you?"
And we close curtains on Act 1. Okay. Are you all enjoying it so far?
Okay, let's get ready for Act 2, The Quest for Fun. A couple of days have passed, with Amy going back and forth between 2 versions of Tales of the Dust Bunnies. 1 runner game and 1 turn-based puzzle.
Can't the team just like prototype both?
Well, we have developers in the room.
Just do both, go on.
Maybe if they had more time and budget, but Top Drawer Studio doesn't have that luxury.
Okay, but then why does the script say that Amy goes out for drinks? I mean, it seems a little bit early to relax if she hasn't figured out the game. You wrote this.
Well, we have a life, you know. Also, sometimes it's just good to get out of your own head. Besides, it's the monthly game developers meeting. Let's go in there. It's resisting me. Amy's good friend Misha waves at her from a table, so she joins him. They give each other a warm hug. Not awkward at all. And Misha says,
Hey, how's tiny angry flappy bird? We don't talk about that.
Amy takes a sip of her beer and answers,
We've moved on to a new project. I'm a bit stuck.
She explains her problem to Misha. Hang on. What about NDAs, non-disclosure agreements?
they're not really a thing with indie devs. It's a very supportive community. Besides, game ideas are a dime a dozen. The magic is in the execution, and everyone's too busy with their own thing to steal yours.
Okay, so does that mean that Misha can actually help?
Maybe. Misha says,
I think your instinct to go with a turn-based mechanic so you can have co-op gameplay is the best option.
Amy says,
But how do I keep the tension of the pursuit?
Look at Lara Croft go. They had a similar challenge in some of the puzzles. Maybe their solutions could inspire you. So, do you often draw inspiration from other games or nick them?
draw inspiration all the time, nick them. If someone has already solved the problem, it's worth seeing what works and what doesn't in the solution, and then put your own twist on it. That can be tiny, tiny mechanics, or big genre merges like first-person shooters integrating RPG mechanics.
Okay. Well, I wonder if that puts an end to evil Amy's reign.
Let's find out. Fast forward back to the office and into Amy's thoughts.
Someone fast forward. That's okay. That's okay.
Did you actually reverse that?
Technology. A few weeks have passed, and while the Davids are coding the basis of the prototype, Amy has been doing high-level designs of different features. The game is starting to take shape in her head. Is it? Yes!
The fidget cube isn't enough to help her concentration today, so she's resorted to dancing in front of the whiteboard.
For some mysterious reason, she's listening to an a cappella rendition of the classic Super Mario theme.
glad you picked up on that. What we were angling for there.
Next was Sean.
It was beautiful. Amy notes down ideas as she thinks.
We have furniture as the environment, and some soap suds as an obstacle. The Dust Bunnies needs to go around it in a limited number of moves, or the vacuum cleaner will catch up.
That actually sounds like fun. But something disagrees. Something dark and full of terrors.
Let's make 100 levels out of that. Signed.
Do I really have to say this line?
It's got your name next to it.
Evil Amy is right.
Yep. There is a thin line between crippling self-doubt and constructive self-questioning.
Amy says,
I want players to have a jolt of endorphins when they finish a level. To feel the satisfaction of barely making it out. Maybe another threat that moves on its own?
oh no. Amy's thinking about the cat meme that Kareen the artist put on the team chat earlier. Evil Amy is rolling her eyes.
Hey, random thoughts aren't always a bad thing. Amy says, a cat ball!
And now she mentions that the Dust Bunnies do kind of look a bit like cat toys.
Amy wants to flesh out that shiny new idea, but Sam busts in.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. Do you need anything?
Well, the Davids and Kareen are having a heated debate about loot boxes. It's a very heated debate, actually, yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to find a more productive way of using their time.
Oh,
That cat paw thing.
Sam says, pointing at the whiteboard.
It's not really fleshed out, but...
You know what, let's prototype it. I'd like to get feedback from other developers as soon as possible.
Sam leaves Amy alone with her thoughts.
Goodbye. And Evil Amy is at it again.
The team is waiting on your designs. What else is new?
It's gonna be okay. We have a cat, we could have a rolling ball as an obstacle too.
You're just phoning it in and copying that Lara Croft game now.
Amy does her best to stay focused.
Coins to collect, power up.
Will it empower them to be entertaining?
I'm sorry, but how do you ever ship a game with that shitty Daria GLaDOS hyper?
Professionalism and creative stubbornness.
You are a really shit liar, you know, the answer is blind luck, isn't it?
It does feel like that sometimes. Let's just fast forward a few weeks.
It's quite a few weeks.
It's okay.
Okay. Oh, I've lost where I was. Now, don't give up. Right, okay. All I can hear is terrifying noises.
Putting on the show is very hard.
It's pretty true to life to the game dev studio, I feel.
Okay. We're good? We're good, right? Okay. The Davids have pulled together a prototype. Is it fun yet? No. It's really early in the process, but it's good to have something on the iPhone, I guess.
Corinne has been working on concept art, but none of it is in the build yet. We often don't need that to figure out whether an idea is good or not.
So what shows up on the screen then?
Programmer art! So you have like the red rectangle representing the vacuum cleaner, the orange rectangle represents obstacles, the purple is a dust bunny.
Yeah, well,
Thomas was alone.
well, that's a look, I guess.
At one of my jobs, we had a programmer who would make programmer art full of jokes. And on one of the projects, the artist just made the jokes look better. They didn't go back to check what was actually supposed to be there. Well, we had to redo a lot of work.
So you'd rather have programmer art that makes you want to gouge your eyes out?
Pretty much. Also, if you remember our intro, all of the sound effects for this build are...
Yes. You make the noise. That was very close. Yeah, you were right. A highbrow event we are not.
So we're going to ask you to make that sound whenever it makes sense.
Okay. So, are you good with that? The correct answer is... Okay. Amy sits down with the build to review it and see what works and what doesn't.
Evil Amy is ever present in the back of her head.
The level starts with the Dust Bunnies on the left, and they need to reach... Yeah, that's right.
The prototype is a bit buggy.
I tell you what, the loading times on this are killer. So the level starts with the Dust Bunnies on the left. They need to reach the objective on the right.
Amy taps to move the Dust Bunnies around one space at a time. She's looking out for obstacles.
But then an orange rectangle swipes at the Dust Bunnies. And Amy fails the level. Evil Amy says,
That must be the cat paw. No one can dodge those. Great design choice.
wow. Amy writes her thoughts down to pass on to the Davids later.
The paw should alternate between swiping and retracting every time a bunny moves. The player would need to plan their route so they pass the cat paw while it's retracted.
And she then restarts the level.
Every time she moves, this time she moves her bunnies a bit further, but then the vacuum cleaner crosses the screen. And the two bunnies die. And evil Amy goes, amazing grace. Amy's a bit surprised. She says, I didn't know you cared that much about the Dust Bunnies.
Evil Amy says,
I do. Not. I am grieving your career.
Use
your words. Use your words.
I hate the puppet. I will.
I understand. Luckily, Amy will not be deterred.
Go, Amy. She writes down,
There should be a proximity warning for the vacuum cleaner. It could give the player a definite number of turns to complete the level, or just flash when the turns are coming to an end.
she keeps playing and making notes until she feels she's reviewed all that's in the build. So let's fast forward to the next day.
Okay. We live on the edge. Amy, Sam, and the Davids have a meeting to discuss the next iteration of the prototype.
Corinne and Jeff would have joined, but they've got their hands full with other obligations, and so they took today off.
Sam says,
What a wonderful job, team. I would like us to work towards getting a build in the hands of some of our friends. What do you think?
Amy says, I would love that. I think we need to address the points in my notes first, and maybe add some placeholder art to make it easier to understand.
Then the Davids answer, yeah, no, wuckers, mate.
The team keeps going over the requirements and how long it might take.
Okay, let's fast forward a few more weeks.
We have a new version of the prototype!
And let's find out. Is it fun yet? We're actually not sure. That's why Amy and Sam invited Misha to try out an iPhone build.
Amy is setting up the meeting room. She has a glass of water for Misha, her notebook, a device to play the build, and a nervous feeling in the pit of her stomach.
Since Misha hasn't arrived yet, Amy ducks out of the meeting room to grab her stress relief ball from her desk. Evil Amy is ever present in her mind.
The game is not as good as it could be. You know it. Misha will know it. He will laugh. He will tell everyone.
Amy ignores the dark thoughts. Playtesting is an important step. The game won't be perfect, but that's okay. She'll learn how to make it better by watching Misha.
Misha finally arrives, and after hugging Amy, they get into the meeting room. Sam joins them.
Evil Amy is being her annoying self in Amy's mind. She says,
Here we are now. Entertain us. Sam is talking to Misha, saying,
thanks for coming, Misha. Just play as you normally would and we'll ask you a few questions when we're done.
Misha says,
All right, then. Why does he have... Because that's the accent I came up with, okay?
Even in that accent.
Great. That's what Sorry. Misha boots up the game. The furniture is still green rectangles, but the Dust Bunnies and obstacles are Korean sketches. Maybe.
he is first up against the soap side. He quickly moves one dust bunny around the obstacle and then the other. He reaches the end.
So, sorry, the sound effects haven't been replaced yet.
No. Audio is often left to the very end. If there is any audio designer in the crowd, you may yell your frustration now.
Just one. Well done. The next level features the cat paw. Misha moves the dust bunnies close to the paw. It gets in the way.
Misha moves the yellow dust bunny back so the paw retracts, and the other dust bunny can move past it. He then repeats a similar maneuver so the other dust bunnies can join at the end.
Misha is just blazing through the levels. The vacuum cleaner creeps to the edge of the screen only once.
It's obviously not challenging enough. In the back of Amy's head, evil Amy is saying, "Now I've had the time of my life." No,
Okay, good, great, thanks.
don't encourage her.
Evil Amy doesn't need your help. Misha collects some power-ups. And some coins.
Even though he doesn't need them to win in record time.
I just need to check. Do you think the fart thing's run its course? No? Okay, good. I can't believe that fart jokes still work.
The audio engineer screaming every single
Well, yeah, sure, that is very true. You know, it's a good thing that we're doing this after 8 p.m, otherwise no one would believe that we're actually grown-ups. Really.
Fair point.
Sorry.
Misha says,
You know, I think it's interesting, but these levels are really easy.
Amy's mulling over Misha's playthrough and letting Sam carry the conversation.
Yes, it seems the level design needs some improvement. Anything else? I really liked how the cat paw forced me to use both Dust Bunnies. I think you need more of those mechanics, so it's fun to play co-op style. Noted. It's a cool concept, you know, it has potential.
Amy joins the conversation, and the three of them compile all of Misha's thoughts.
That feedback really wasn't bad, was it?
No, it was super useful. It's never easy to get a critique on something you've poured passion into, but it's how we grow.
Great, that's wow. Deep. Let's move fast forward a few weeks when the team is done implementing the changes. And closing the curtains. Yeah. We didn't have time to oil them.
Amy has designed new game mechanics and enough levels to show how the difficulty ramps up from easy to challenging.
She has now moved on to the layer above the basic puzzle elements in the levels.
She drafted a synopsis for the story of the game. There's not going to be much plot, but she wants to give some context to the world and the friendship of the main characters.
She's designed a system that allows players to spend the coins they've earned in the levels on extra power-ups or special abilities for the bunnies.
Top drawer.
Oh, another bug.
Next, Bill.
Oh,
Yeah. Top Drawer Studio wants to apply for funding, but Tales of the Dust Bunnies, and Amy wants to make the demo as polished as she can.
She's thinking about additional improvements when Sam interrupts her. Sort of. Hey, Amy, as a game on mobile, we should definitely be free to play. Do you have any thoughts on a monetization strategy? Amy says,
Monetization strategy? No, I haven't been thinking about that at all.
Could you look into it? I think if we had a bit of documentation around that, it would help support our funding application.
Sure.
It would be great if the project pulled enough revenue to support us through the developing of the next game. Relying on funding and Kickstarter is giving me acid reflux.
Sam leaves Amy alone with her thoughts.
Or she would be alone if it wasn't for something dark and full of terrors.
Everyone's job depends on you. No pressure.
Amy is thinking furiously.
Maybe the purchase of the power-ups requires premium currency bought with real money.
You have successfully made coins useless.
Maybe players can customize the look of their Dust Bunnies.
Boring.
Maybe the Dust Bunnies could be sold as merch.
Yes, because we have no money for development, but we have money to produce merchandise. LOL.
Stop it! Stop! Why are you so negative?
Is that a reverse fourth wall break? Breaking the fourth wall to redefine fourth wall breaks? Take that, Deadpool!
Who took her eye?
I just don't think I can take this anymore.
I think Amy is feeling it too.
Oh, I don't know anything anymore. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe it's my fault we failed with tiny angry fluffy birds.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah. I think Amy's spirit is broken.
This is all your fault, evil Amy.
This was a triumph. I'm making the note here. Success.
End of Act 2. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm still quite upset.
So,
Does anyone have a fidget spinner? I'm really
I got a cube. Oh, that's a
cube, spinner, hair, yes, all the things. Act 3, everything is ... So, we've hit a bit of a low point in our story.
A bit? Just a bit?
Okay. We're at the point of the creative process that sucks. The point where novels go unfinished, paintings start gathering dust, and songs never find their last verse. Any creatives in the room? We're familiar with this, aren't we?
Luckily, it's the second Tuesday of the month, and game devs have gathered at the usual place.
Amy walks in, and Misha takes one look at her face and orders her a beer.
Misha's lost.
Misha will be back.
Yes.
We have a beer in hand?
Maybe. In any second now. Misha will be back, I swear.
Misha's had
They sit at a table in a semi-secluded corner, and Amy says,
I'm not sure I can be a game designer. I need to figure out how to make Tales of the Dust Bunnies free to play, and it's just not a good concept for it. I totally spaced out on the business model when I designed the core of the game. Misha pats Amy's back.
Or, headbutt. And he says,
you're hitting a roadblock, it happens.
It's more than a roadblock. I've struggled through this whole project. I pulled stuff out of my ham for the funding request, but now the whole team is stressing out about the Kickstarter. There's a bunch of mean comments on the page, and I'm failing. I'm failing my team.
Oh. I played this prototype a few months ago, and it was impossible for the characters to complete a level alone. They needed to work together to overcome obstacles.
Ha ha ha. Very funny. They were Dust Bunnies, weren't they?
Can't remember. It doesn't matter. Besides the point, they taught me that sometimes you need to rely on the people around you. Huh? I bet you didn't expect insightful life advice from us.
Well, his character's developed that way.
What if they think I'm the worst designer they've ever worked with?
You're selling yourself short and giving your team too little credit.
For the rest of the evening, Amy and Misha chat about upcoming games, the new Marvel movie. It helps distract Amy from her stress.
And we fast forward to the next day.
Amy sits at her desk, trying to muster up the courage before the meeting she organized with the team. She has carefully crafted her message.
And by carefully crafted, we mean she stayed wide awake all night, obsessing over her word choice, all because of something dark and full. No, sorry, no. You know what? It's something dark and full of fuzz. Ooh, got you right.
Sticks and stones, I have no bones.
Right. When Amy gets to the meeting, everyone else is there. Sam, the Davids, Kareen, Jeff, and Jeff's luscious hair. Yeah. It's a beard, yeah. Sorry, that... Hi, Jeff.
Amy says, "Hi, I've been super stressed lately because I can't figure out a good way to turn our game into a free-to-play, and that makes me feel like a failure, and I need help. Please don't fire me, okay?"
Was that one breath?
And of course, evil Amy in her head.
Great delivery. 10/10. Would recommend.
The team look at each other for a moment.
Their silence really stresses Amy out.
And of course, evil Amy isn't helping.
Amazing grace. How sweet.
Shut up! But then, Kareen approaches Amy.
Would you like a hug?
Amy nods, and the two of them hold each other for a moment.
Sam says,
I really appreciate your courage in talking to us. I'm sorry I put so much pressure on you. How can we help?
the puppets all nod in agreement, and Amy says,
We need a metagame, an overarching motivation for the players that they can progress through with or without spending money to support us. It would be great if that didn't require constant content creation to be entertaining.
That sounds really complicated. I mean, no wonder she's been stressing. And evil Amy whispers,
maybe I should start grieving Top Drawer Studio.
No, not just yet. Because Jeff has an idea. I'm of a mind that we could expand the world of our Dust Bunnies. Once the initial two have reached the safety of a vacuum-free world, they could go on missions to rescue their brethren Dust Bunnies.
The Davids add,
Yeah, we could collect more Dust Bunnies over time, yeah. Different minions with different skill sets. Yeah, strategy, team strategy, an army of Dust Bunnies, world domination.
if such puppet had body fluids, the Davids would be drooling. Kareen says,
It will be so much fun to make more little cute Dust Bunnies.
And Amy says,
More variety would be good for cooperative gameplay. Dust Bunnies that aren't engaged in puzzles could go on scouting missions to get upgrade material.
the team's enthusiasm is making Amy smile. Evil Amy shrinks into her corner, waiting for her moment to pounce.
Sam says,
I love this idea, but I'm a bit worried about the scope. How long would it take to implement multiplayer gameplay, Davids? Oh yeah, 2 weeks. It could blow up the whole game, yeah, but we could put it in as a stretch goal, you know, on Kickstarter, or release it as an update once the game goes live, yeah.
and Sam says,
That's a great idea.
Oh, no.
I love doing this in front of a room full of game decks. Amy, how many new mechanics and powers would we need for launch? How many new levels? Amy's getting flustered. The world around her blurs, and her team seems to disappear from her world. She's alone and worried. She doesn't even have her stress ball or her fidget spinner. Evil Amy says,
You can't answer this, can you?
I'll put
Can
Sockette.
you?
but then, strengthened by her team's trust and support, Amy finds some inner peace, and she says,
Thank you.
Evil Amy is taken aback.
The choice you made is invalid.
You've made me stronger. You helped me question my decisions so that my design would be as good as it can be.
It is still awful.
No, I will not listen to you anymore. My team doesn't think I failed. They believe in me. So the least I can do is return the favor and trust in their opinion.
Evil Amy retracts into the shadows, almost disappearing from view. But still she lingers.
What if they are wrong?
I can always learn from my mistakes and iterate on the design until it's good.
What if that never happens? Remember the mean comments on Kickstarter page? What if no one likes the game?
Then don't read the comments.
Then we'll make another one. This is the art we love, the art we're passionate about, and we'll keep creating. Through the changes in the market, through the tech upgrades that break our whole game, through our mistakes and bad reviews, we'll keep growing, we'll keep making games together.
Evil Amy lets out a cry as she poofs out of existence!
The self-confidence, it burns. How appropriate.
Amy is breathing easier, and the meeting room comes back into view. It's like no time has passed at all. Sam, Corrine, the Davids, Jeff, and Jeff's magnificent hair are looking at Amy, and she says,
I need a little bit of time to think through what we need. Would it be okay if I organized more brainstorms with all of you?
and Sam says, of course. Just let us know if and when you need anything.
The whole team nods in agreement. Sam continues.
How do you feel, Amy?
Good. I think we can figure this out. Yeah. Everything is awesome! Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome
When you live
another dream. The end!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I want you to go completely crazy for all of our incredible puppeteers.
And a big round of applause for Anthea, who made all of this.
Wow, you were a tough critic. He's like, don't give it too much applause, the eye did come off.
Are you sure it wasn't meant to?
Okay, is this on? Wonderful. Okay, this is the end of this panel. Thank you so really funny. Just in case you didn't notice, we did not know the story.
It's enlightful!
Yeah, we were trying to continue this panel every year to cover another role. This year was the game designer, next year we'll see who gets the next role. Trying to teach you how game development works and what sometimes the issues are and the personalities and the things we have to navigate when we make games, but also to teach you healthy ways to engage with us and how we engage with each other. So it's all about positivity and talking about how we do things. Thank you so much, and hopefully till next year.